And we'll start the recording. So I'm going to tape that down. So I'm going to take out a rolly ruler and a red pencil for this first overlay. And the first thing, the buildings are not that attractive. They're not something we want to present per se. And they're also an elevation. So I think what would potentially be interesting now is to take that to the language of section and actually cut through and start to have a sectional view of these buildings to give us a look, just to give you an idea of what we might be shooting for here in the PowerPoint. Something like that. So slide 139. That's from a street mix image right there. So that's a type of overlay that we can put directly over a street mix image and actually make it ours. So we'll start that by this cartoonish building here on the right. We have to understand where the floors are. The floors are happening, right? The floor thickness is sort of happening kind of in there. So I'm going to start putting lines there where I think the floors are happening. Okay, so there's a floor thickness running through between this commercial floor and this first residential floor. So using my rolly ruler, and I got my graph paper underneath here to help me as well. Do you remember your graph paper? Do you remember? Maybe. Never mind. That the floors are happening between these layers of windows. So I will start to put in some reference lines that approximate where I think the floors are. And that's on our first overlay. And there, you can see I'm putting in these red lines there. And of course there's a roof plane and roof thickness. And if you let these lines carry over, what it means is that we can actually start to show more of the building in sectional view. Not this elevation view, but sectional view. And if you let the lines carry over here to the right, that gives us a space to put terraces, right? Or walkouts. So those are just kind of blocking in where I think the thickness of the floors are relative to that first floor, that second floor, third, and fourth. I'll do that for the opposing building as well. Put these red lines where we think the floors are so that we can start building up the sectional view. You can see on the example there on slide 139, we've got the cut through a couple of different buildings. Okay. These trees look kind of anemic. They don't look, they're not fully grown, are they? No? Nah. So let's give them an arc and bring them to full fruition. Okay. Using the toe of the marker, we'll just kind of give ourselves a guideline for a much healthier, fully grown tree as opposed to those anemic looking things. Using the same technique and process we did before. Oh, what was that? Okay. Going down, boss. So maybe these houses have balconies or terraces overlooking the street. They might start to have a thickness there. I can even use the marker now and just go, all right, that's going to be the thickness of the floor using the toe of the marker. Just basically blanked out where those were, but I'm just going to pull that red line in there just so we can see it and mark out where that floor is going to be. And then there's the thickness or the structure of the building, right? That's the header that's holding up the facade. It lines up with the windows that StreetMix gave us, right? On the example there, slide 139, you can see the floor comes out into a terrace and then blocks down into the building clear story and the awning. So maybe there's an awning there. Maybe this building has a parapet popping up like that. Maybe a header. Maybe it has a terrace coming out. Header, terrace, header. The awning comes out in a little triangle like that. Anything we want to put on the roof up here? Something interesting up there? A what? Green roof, okay, we can do that. All right. Using the toe of the marker, or maybe a penthouse or something like that. So I'm just going to put another put like a penthouse up here or something like that. So I'll use the toe of the marker there. Put a little header and a header there. Just pop up another story on top of this roof. Pop up this parapet as a railing, maybe. And just have that parapet enclose that penthouse roof, that garden roof up there. I just can't win. People are already there, right? We've got enough information for them. They're already there. Cars are already there. Got a little parklet here, I think. I might take the red pencil and just kind of reinforce a few lines here just to remind myself where the cars are. Right now the street lamps are at this low level. There may be a secondary to that. There might be banners. There might be an extension onto the street lamp just to get them out a little bit. See, StreetMix has a very limited vocabulary, so you as the designer have to bring back that vocabulary and make sure it's doing what you want it to do, not what they want you to do. And so consequently, there's quite a bit that you can add to these things to make them more interesting. Yes, Mother. Hi. So from the StreetMix layer, I've got the recording running here. So from the StreetMix layer, we extracted the information we wanted. General layout of the cars, placement of the trees, placement of some of the street lights. We modified them right away. General dimension of people laid in where the section through the floors would be, added awnings and terraces and some scale figures. We even added a basement here, which is optional, but another level to our apartments here on either side of the street. We can pull away our street mix layer, turn it over as white, or we can just use graph paper underneath, again as a guide. And that'll conclude our first overlay with all that red pencil and red marker. Our second overlay will go on over that. So that's another piece of trace. Place that in there. And then we need to get out our line weights. So, our multiple line weights for ink. Include a fine liner and pencil sign pen. And so what I'm going to do now is just lay in now, trace freehand all those lines that we've blocked out. There's the parapet, the thickness of the floor that we cut through, the window and door, sliding door, thickness of the floor, the support of the terrace there, the outline of the person, the bulkhead, the terrace, person on the terrace, hopefully not jumping off, we have an alum, a friend of mine who practices out of Alexandria, Virginia. He had mentioned on his Facebook recently they were doing some apartments in Arlington area, and Virginia was considering whether or not they could allow apartment terraces anymore because of the number of people falling off of them. So it would just it quickly can become a code issue depending on what's happening locally and what's happening in terms of public safety and health, safety, and welfare. So. Storefront system underneath this awning here, a few people inside hanging out, and you can add as much detail to this as you want. You know, if you wanted to start getting into chairs and tables, people sitting at things or ordering from something, from a counter or otherwise, as much or as little detail as you want in there. With grid paper, it always helps to have a little bit guide back there, and you can do all kinds of stuff with just the beginning life of bringing that street life into a building. I'm just using the fine liner for this. I'm just basically following this double line. But as you can see in the example there, we're going to build that up. Where the section cut occurs, we're actually going to bulk that up with some sign pen. But I always like to put it in fine liner first because we can always add line weight. Very difficult to take it away. So, for a little bit of a break, I'll just jump over to the tree and knock out the circulatory system of the tree. It's the same technique we practiced last class, but at a smaller scale. Principle is the same. So you've been practicing your trees, you're in good shape. Street Mix gave us this little parklet, which looked like it was a portable sort of parking day installation. It might have been a metal container or something like that. A few cities have been experimenting with parklets that can be deployed just for the summer months and then pulled away for the winter, because cities still need space to put snow. But I'll add a few people in here just to reinforce the life that we're trying to display for the street. I carried through a few lines from the Street Mix car because I just need basically to knock out a few lines to describe the car. I don't need to get into make and model at this particular scale, obviously. Not interested in that. I'm just interested in enough information to communicate that that is a car coming toward the viewer, depending on which side of the drive lane is and where it should be. One year we got carried away and I think we did British streets, so the cars were going the wrong direction, but didn't catch it till we were rendering and like, oh no, the cars are on the wrong side of the road there, chap. So we've had some fun over the years making mistakes and fixing them. But Street Mix gave us just enough information to sort of tell us where the street light can be, and we can add information to that. My fine liner has finally woken up. Sometimes it takes a little bit of work for the fine liners to get back into flow. And so I'm starting to experience that now. Fine liner was getting a little bit dry, so laying down a few lines has woken it up. So I will layer in just some fine line pen on every double line, tree, foliage, car, person, and just stop and kind of look at where I am, and decide how much information I actually want to put in this thing, or how little, in terms of what kind of activity is happening in here, so, or furniture, or rooms, or things like that. Chances are they all have a bathroom or kitchen or something of some fashion up here. So there may be some things happening in those interiors. There may be a railing detail that you can start to lay in with the fine line pen. They could be different types of railing details. Just a couple of lines just to tell your viewer that there's some materiality to that, and to remind them that it is a terrace, a railing terrace kind of situation between the inside and the outside. When you're finished with that fine line layer, grab your sign pen and start to look at, all right, what is now actually being cut through? Where are the solids that are being cut through here? And so we will add line weight to those areas to describe where the cut is coming through. And that will pop as part of a graphic hierarchy. Easier to add line weight than to take it away. I'm just going to carefully lay that in over the fine line pen, cover up all my mistakes, which I like to do. I like to cover up mistakes. Just carefully lay in a thick section cut line to create that level of hierarchy, to tell our viewer that we're cutting through these solid walls and floors. I'm not going to do that for the awnings or things. Those are just objects. I'm going to do this thickness just to represent the thickness of the floors and the bulkheads carrying the weight of the building down to the earth. I'm starting to see architectural renderings from different schools, high-rises, apartments, towers, and things like that, that show absolutely no foundations, which is really strange. When I was in school, they were drilled into us this notion of always showing a foundation, showing something for the building to rest on. And so to see these beautiful renderings on Instagram now with no footing, no foundation at all, is kind of troubling. So I'm just, with the sign pen, adding this next level of line weight. And then I will check my work. Just lay a layer of white in there and just kind of check my work, make sure everything's closed up. Things aren't drifting off, or there are any closed areas. But the line weight and hierarchy is coming through. And I'll pause the camera. So I have my graph paper, I have my rolly ruler. I'm just going to start with a ground line, just to establish a ground plane. And I'm going to measure 3 inches from that ground plane. If we're working at ½ an inch equals a foot, then this will be a 6 foot tall person. Half of that 3 inches is 1.5 inches. I'm going to mark the halfway point. Okay? And that's important because we're going to build our scale figure off of that. So you could use an architectural scale here for ½ an inch per foot, or you could just use a ruler and use math. All right? So this is 3 inches tall, this is 1.5 inches, this is 1.5 inches in 2 segments. I take the marker at the 3 inch level. With the toe of the marker pointing up, I make a mark like that. 3 inches high. This is 3 inches. Here is the head of the marker with the toe pointing up. Just a very basic mark right there. What's that? It's a head. Okay? Using the full chisel of the marker with the toe pointing away from my drawing hand, I make 2 strokes, double strokes like so, just below that 1.5 inch, that 1.5 inch line. What is that? That's the torso. All the way from the top of the shoulder down to the glutes. What does the 1.5 inch represent? It's the belt line. Okay? Okay? The head is roughly 1/3 the width of the shoulders, right? Roughly 1/3 width of the shoulders. Using the heel of the marker, I'm going to pull a couple of legs off of that, as well as a bent elbow and an arm. Where does the hand fall relative to the belt line? Below the belt line, right? Belt line, the hand falls below it. Okay? In true Bob Ross fashion. They need a friend. It is Valentine's Day after all, so let's carry over 3 inch line all the way over. They need a friend. Try it again. It is Valentine's Day, so with the toe of the marker pointing up, and then a double chisel and the heel. We will construct a proportional person from that. 6 foot tall. 2 6 foot tall people. Okay. So now we have a scale, we have a dimension and proportion for the drawing. We have an idea now of how big we want to make our sun relative to a human scale figure. So consequently, we look at examples of slide 143 to 144, we can actually start to construct 2 different levels of signage. One might be a highway or a corridor level signage, one might be a neighborhood or street level or pedestrian level signage, based on scale figures that are existing in our drawing that are 6 feet tall. So, okay. Okay, so we need a town name. Gotta make one up. Gotta make one up every year. Different, brand new town name. Any nominations? Any nominations for town names?
Well, instead of Valentine, it's downtown.
All right.
Meisterberg.
What? Meisterberg? What? Say again? I don't know. Any others? All right. Sounds perfect. You can layer Billy Joel's Allentown over it. Here we are in Valentine. All right. So how big do we want to make this sign? We now have a person people to refer to. So how big should this be? So, what? Okay. So if that's 6 foot, then this might be 8 or 9, and we'll just, we'll make a rectangle. Just make a rectangle kind of thing there. And I use construction lines a lot, okay, just so we can, proportional lines and things like that, so we can, what this does is it helps us we always know where the midpoint is in something, right? So I use construction lines, diagonal construction lines a lot when we start to build this stuff. So here we are in Valentine, so it's got to have a heart, doesn't it? Oh my goodness. Oh, how could it possibly not? So if you've got a circle template or a quarter or dime, oh my goodness, this will live in the archives forever. Okay, so we're gonna have fun with some lettering here, maybe. I don't know. I like that. I don't know if I like that one. So we'll try something else. Try maybe something like that. And so around the heart, maybe there's some architecture around that. Maybe we can start to pull out some lintels. Maybe we start to play with some columns. So again, I like to play with graph paper and construction lines and all that stuff. It just makes it more fun. Maybe this is a column head. Maybe this is a lintel of some sort. Maybe this is maybe at the midpoint we can jut out kind of a strong base there. Just using some tapered stuff. I was running around Ball State campus today with freshmen. We were talking about limestone and lintels and brick details. We're drawing doors in CAP498 just as an introduction to elevations and sections and things like that. So here we are in Valentine. So, works perfect with Billy Joel. It's great. I'm going to play that tonight when I get home. Oh, it's going to be a tight squeeze. Ooh, that was painful. Well, let's see now. I have to adjust a little bit. Because that was a little painful. I'm gonna need a little more room there, there, and so on. All right. Sign plate. What state is Valentine in? I mean, if Virginia is for lovers, then, you know, maybe it is in Virginia. Okay. What do we want this to be made of? Stone, brick? What do we want? Limestone? Brick and limestone? Just limestone? Hello? Both? Okay. All right. So, using the toe of the marker or the heel, I'm going to drag, using the heel, I'm just going to drag a few courses of brick, with a little bit of a gap in between each one, just to remind us where the mortar lines are. This is good. Okay, so that's where the courses are going to be, and then we'll just make this all just like a rough cut limestone, or a nice or polished limestone, something like that. Yeah, we'll maybe it's a rough cut. I don't know. Just kind of block those in like so. That. I'll erase away a little bit here. I want two sort of strong feet there in limestone. And these will be this will be a few runs of brick. Probably a limestone lintel and heart. That's all. They can do all of that down in southern Indiana. And I'll just kind of maybe brick kind of in here. Carefully just lock that in, but need a little gap in between each row of heel. That's going to remind you where the mortar lines are. Okay. I don't know if I like this yet, but we're getting there. I don't know. I don't know. Would you live here? Think about it. Okay. I'm going to fix my lettering. So I need a little bit of room. All right, so that's the city sign or corridor sign. How do we do like a street level sign, or what would be the pedestrian level version of that? So we got our friend over here. Probably wants to be taller than them, right? So maybe it's also about 7 or 8 feet tall. Obviously there's a heart, right? Oh my, right. Obviously. So maybe we just take that up into a little fan-like thing. The heart in the middle. Above head height, so we don't hit our head too badly. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, wow, 3, 6, 9. 9 letters. 4, N in the middle, N. You give me directions to Valentown. Is there a Valentown this way? I was supposed to meet somebody in Valentown. Okay, think we can do it? Maybe? "40 minutes left." All right, so fine line pen. Just putting a layer of, just a layer of thin line weight. Outline the lettering. Still trying to keep it readable. I'll just use double lines over that lettering. Come in with thin line weight to kind of bump out that lintel, that mantelpiece, or that molding, trim molding at the top. Probably a limestone heart. These are columns. Full limestone sign plate. Probably maybe with carved letters or metal letters set into limestone. We can backlight those with white neon. They look really nice. You've probably seen those in different places. Metal letters with backlit white neon set out. I'll trace over my lettering. Trying to make as many mistakes in the marker layer as possible, just so this trace layer goes a little bit smoother. I'll just trace over the marker with that kind of that same double line. That way I can make the letters any color I want. Or I can leave them white and render the back. The backing, wherever we want to take the design. So. Stop the recording here. I've got to switch sim back. And starting with sky blue, I'm just going to add a few horizontal lines, barely touching the paper. And then the upper, our sweeping technique to a dot, sweep around the sign, into the other sign. Remember that the negative space is the cloud, so I just need enough just to tell the viewer where the negative space is. That's it. Around the head of the person, that same sweeping technique we did before. If you overlap, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. Just let that sky blue be our background color so that we can concentrate on building materials in the foreground. That's our first layer of color, is some sky blue. Next is going to be the lightest beige that you have. It might be beige, it might be buff, it might be... Because this is a limestone sign, I'm just going to put a little bit of beige all over. I'm going to reinforce lines. I'm going to make these gestural kind of swoopy diagonals. I'm going to reinforce angles. I'm not going to cover the whole thing. I'm just going to add these kind of dodgy kinds of things. I'm going to reinforce mortar joints back and forth, like so. With our other sign, I'll just warm that up with just a little bit of this beige, just so we get a warm color going there. We'll add additional colors onto that. Next, I will grab pale cherry. I'm going to put some pale cherry on the side, on one side of the scale figure, one side of the other scale figure, just to warm them up a little bit. Now, I can even use the pale cherry to start to warm up the brick a little bit. Start to get a little bit of that pink peach kind of color into the brick. Not the limestone, just the brick. We're going to layer up. Next, I'll either pick craft brown, desert tan, or sienna brown. One of those browns. Any of those will do. I'm going to add that to the brick. This is craft brown. I'm just adding a little bit of that to the brick. I'm working on top of beige and pale cherry. We're going to get kind of a polychromic feel to it. Instead of a uniform brick color, we're going to try to get a little bit of sense of chroma with these different colors working together. I'll also come in and put a little bit of green into my plants. So. Next, I'll take some blueberry, if I can find one. I'm going to take blueberry and add it to the shaded side of my scale figures. It might be pant leg, it might be arm, it might be hair. Just add a sense of shade to one side of the scale figure. Makes the scale figures seem rounded a bit. And then I'll add blueberry to the underbelly of my plants, maybe down by the stalk. The stalk meets the ground. And then I will add blueberry to wherever I think there's a shadow. If there's a shadow from the top of the molding onto the brick, if there's a shadow from the heart onto the brick, if there's a shadow from the sign plate onto the brick, I'm going to add blueberry on top of that brown, because blueberry will blend with the browns to give that impression of shade. There might be some blueberry in the column, deep in the column here, just to give a sense of depth. Or maybe this is a carved piece. I'll use some blueberry to give the impression of shade inside of the carved portion of this big limestone heart. That's it. I'm ready for colored pencils already. There isn't much to the marker layers. You just need enough for a wash, just so other colors in colored pencil can pop. This is Valentine, so red probably is prominent. Just guessing. Again, these might be metal letters set out from limestone. Could be backlit at night. Gives a really cool effect. And then just a little bit of color on our folks here for some clothing. Blend clothing color directly over that pale cherry and over that blueberry, and you get sort of that rounded effect. It blends directly over. And that is our urban signage, masonry and steel, pedestrian level signage, as well as a vehicular corridor level signage.